So welcome everyone to our 2026 NSD workshop. We're going to put together the projects today, starting with the project recipe. So it's going to be Megan starting us out. And then I get the honor of doing the whole project booklet with you, which is, we drew straws and I think I got both straws. So I'm the one doing it. But we were going to have her 4 pages, and then we have 10 coming up after that. So we are here for the afternoon. If you need to step away or pause or come back to it, as always, this will be recorded and you can come back and find us later. So there is nothing to print. For those of you finding us later, we are using just strictly the handouts that came with the projects from Creative Memories. So there's no digital form. Okay, Megan, it's all you.
Hello. Yeah, so I will be completely honest. When Tessa said we drew straws, we didn't draw straws. Megan just said, "Hey, I think you should put together the guidebook and I will do the project recipe." I'd already done the guidebook, put those projects together. I helped test it for Creative Memories. And so I was like, I thought Tessa could enjoy I knew she would need a set for her NSD event that she's having with her customers. And so why not put it together along with all of you? So I am going to be showing how to do the project recipe. So I'm going to flip over here to my overhead camera and we have everything we need here. So I'm going to be following along right along with their directions. I'm not going to be doing any variations, but to keep in mind, you can flip papers over, experiment with other sides, especially if you want to maximize or minimize a particular pattern. I will say I will post later. I do have some alternative ones, but it's a little bit more detailed. So I'll have another post that'll have some indirect directions, minor directions, but we're following along with the project recipe today. So the papers, we're going to start by cutting our papers. One thing you will need that is not included in the project recipe is you will need some paper to be able to do some welding strips. So if you have your paper from the guidebook, the accessory paper pack, you will have a cover sheet. So this is off of Global Getaway, but these make cutting your paper strips for doing some paper welding is really good to use these papers. You can just use some strips of cardstock, but you're going to want to have a couple of 1 by 12-inch strips to be able to do that. So just have some scrap paper available. And we're going to start off, we're going to be starting off by cutting our sunflower paper. And the reverse side, one side of the paper is kind of that yellow check, and the other side is the sunflowers. We're then going to be cutting one sheet of our chicken paper. We are going to cut the other chicken paper, which is the reverse side of it is the brown. And then we will be cutting our songbird blue cardstock to make mats. So I'm going to get those papers and set them to the side. My 2 plaid and my canary, I can set to the side. They will not be cut. I'll set them to the side with my stickers. All right, I'm going to start up here with my sunflower paper. I'm going to flip it over. This paper is non-directional on both sides. It really doesn't matter which side we're going to do, but I want us to take a look at it. We are cutting some angles, and I want you to note they have just dashed lines here, which is kind of misleading because we're actually going to cut them. And so they have a line coming up one direction here. We're going to go up from the left side of our paper, and on the other paper, we're going to come angle down towards the right. So those are something you just need to keep in mind. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to take one of my papers and I'm going to cut off the 2 1.5-inch strips. So 2A and 2B, I'm going to go ahead and cut those off. I'm just going to go ahead over here on the right side of my trimmer, bring this out to 1.5, and I'm going to cut 2 of those. And there's really, is there a direction? Maybe there is a little bit of a direction to this. You can look at your sunflowers and maybe they feel directional. I don't know. So I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 1.5-inch strips, 2A and 2B. And the thing to note here, when I say 2A and 2B, that is going to go to layout number 2. Where it says 1A, that means it's going to go to layout number 1. So if you want to make piles for project recipe, it's really easy. We just have our 2 layouts. We have layout 1 and layout 2. So I'm going to put all of my layout number 2 strips and pieces to one side. I'll put layout number 1 to the other side. So that's a really nice feature. Creative Memories is starting to label their projects a little bit differently in that regard. So I've done one. I've cut 2B. I'm going to cut 2A now. So it's another 1.5-inch strip. So now I have a 9-inch wide piece of paper, and this is where I need to measure up 3 inches, and I'm cutting paper number 1. So I need to measure up 3 inches on the right side. So I'm going to go ahead and grab, if I have a pencil. I do not seem to have a pencil. I'm just going to use my cutting mat. I'm going to measure up 3 inches, put a little bit of a mark. This piece that we're going to cut on the diagonal is going to be reversed. So I've marked it at that 3 inches. 3 inches I've marked on the right side. I'm going to put that mark on my cutting mat right at where I'm going to, right at the cut line. And then I'm going to angle it down to the corner. So there's my 3-inch line up there. And I'm going to bring it down, put it right on that cut line, and go ahead and slice. Now the pieces I just cut are 1A is my big piece, and this is 1B. So they both go to layout number 1. Now I'm going to cut another piece of the sunflower paper. And I'm again going to start off by cutting those 2 1.5-inch strips. They're both going to be for layout number 2. So I'll put them in that layout number 2 pile. 1.5. Now, this is my second banner piece that I need to make. So I need to make that wedge cut, but it's going to be over here on the left. So this time I'm going to use my cutting mat, and I'm going to come up 1, 2, 3 inches. I'm going to mark, making sure I'm lined up here, or use your ruler, however you want to do it. I'm going to make a little mark, but I'm going to be making that mark on the left side because I'm cutting left to lower right. And both of these pieces go to layout number 1. So then you will go ahead and put those over here in layout number 1 pile. So we've already worked our way through designer paper 1 and 2. Designer paper number 3 is our chickens. And look, we need to pay attention to the directions our chickens are going. Our chickens need to be going to the side. The top of our paper, if we look at our cut guide, is over here to the side. And I'm going to go ahead, and again, I need to cut some 1.5-inch strips. So I'll cut 2 1.5-inch strips. They go to layout number 2. All of these pieces actually go to layout number 2. So I'm going to cut 2I and 2J first. 1.5. I'm going to cut a second one at 1.5. And then this piece, this 9 by 12-inch piece, I don't need to do any more with that. So it's already all set. Next up, we're going to be cutting our brown dots. Now, all of these pieces we can see here, none of them say reverse. That's really important to note. None of these say reverse. That means everything that we see here will be used with the brown dots. So we don't have to keep in mind what direction our chickens are going. It doesn't matter. So I can cut this however I want. I'm going to start off with a 4 by 6. I'm going to come over here to 4 inches. I'm cutting pieces 2K and 2L first, 4 inches. I'm going to rotate and cut at 6. Now I have the new trimmer, so you're going to see here how easy that is with that new trimmer. I don't have to pull the arm out. I can just cut it right at 6 inches. These all go to layout number 2. Next up, I have a tall rectangle here, and I can't cut all the way down. What I actually need to do is I need to rotate my paper, and I need to cut my paper at 6 3/4 inch. So I'm going to rotate my paper, and I can't do quite that 6 3/4. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and bring out my trimmer, my guide here, and I'm going to bring it out and find that 6 3/4 and go ahead and cut. Now, the other thing I could do is I could reverse this, or I could cut off 5 1/4. You can see that down here at the bottom for pieces 2O and 2P. If I cut it at 5 1/4, that would also work. So, but I'm going to go ahead and do that 6 3/4. So now this piece that I have here that is 6 3/4, it's 6 3/4 tall by about, should be 8 wide. Yeah, it's 8 wide by 6 3/4 tall. Double check, make sure you're working with the correct piece. I'm going to cut off a piece that is 1 1/4. I'm cutting 2M. That's 1 1/4 inch. This is a piece we'll come back and we'll banner cut. Now, what I should have left is a piece that is about 6 3/4 inch square. It's roughly that. So here's my big square. Now 2O and 2P, I'm going to cut from this piece. So I'm going to cut it at 4 inches. I want to make sure I'm cutting the long side is at the top of my trimmer, not the short side, the long side. And I'll cut that in half at 2 inches or 4 inches, excuse me. And I'll
There
get
is one in
two
the mall
4
there.
by 5 1/4 inch mats.
And the pro nails, but we already have appointments, so.
All right. So next up, I'm going to come over here to my Songbird Blue cardstock. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the really skinny strips. We want to definitely cut those first. We don't want to wait till the very end. They put them over here on the left side for us. So they are 1/4 inch each. We need 2 1/4 inch strips of Songbird Blue. There's one. And I'll cut a second. These strips, everything, these 2 skinny strips go to layout number 1. They're pieces 1E and 1F. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut a strip of paper that is 3 1/2 inches wide. I'm cutting 1G, 1H, and 1I. And then we'll have a little bit left over that we'll do the 2E, 2F, and 2G. So let's go ahead and do the 3 1/2 inches wide. Three and a half. I'm going to rotate this and cut 3 3 1/2 inch squares. So there's 1, 2, and 3. These all go to layout number 1. Now we need to make some small little squares here at the bottom. 2E and 2F are 1 1/2 inches each. My overall piece of paper should be, the short side is 1 1/2. So if I bring this out to 1 1/2, I'll make a couple of squares. And these are more like little accent squares. So if they're not, if for some reason you don't have a perfect 1 1/2, it's okay. But you don't want to lose even your tiny little piece. We're going to use every little last bit of this. So these are really tiny little pieces. So I'm going to set them to the side, like in a special spot, so I won't lose them. I'll still probably lose them, but I have a higher probability of actually keeping track of them. So now with this piece that's left, I'm going to cut 4 4 by 6 mats. So I'm going to bring this over to 4 inches. Rotate, cut at 6. These are all go to layout number 1. This last piece, I'm going to go ahead and cut to the 6 inches as well. So I have 4 by 6 mats. So now we have cut all of the pieces except for, you need to go ahead and cut your 2, you need 2 welding strips. So I'm just going to flip this over and cut 2. Anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to an inch should do you just fine. I'm going to do mine about 3/4 of an inch. I generally find I don't need them to be any wider. So I've got my 2 welding strips. So now I'm done with my trimmer. So now it's time to get started. All right, so for project number 1, we're going to come back to our base piece of paper. These welding strips go with layout number 2, so you can put them in your layout number 2 pile.
Who's
So layout number 1, we are going to start off with our plaid paper is going to be our base. Now, remember, when you're putting things together, you can always flip things over and try the other side. So you can experiment a little bit and see what you like. So don't let that, just keep that in mind when you're putting things like this project recipe together, is experiment with the other side. You never know what is going to, work best for your photos or might just pique your interest a little bit more. I'm a dry fit. We're going to talk about where everything goes. I'm going to move all of my mats out of the way. I have my big banner pieces, and those are going to be the sunflower side up. And then what I'm able to do is I flip these over to show the reverse, the little triangles, flip over to show the reverse. And then, of course, you come in with your blue strips. The songbird blue strips will sit in there and kind of finish off those edges. Now, one of the things you can see here, an opportunity that you have, is I could come in and grab, I could use maybe my custom cutting system and come in and grab a little bit out of the middle of my base paper here, if I wanted to preserve some of that plaid. I like this plaid. I think it's a really nice one. And you do end up just covering up a lot of it. So if you really wanted to get more into paper saving mode, you've got some opportunities in here to pull out some of those base pieces and use them in other projects. Now, just real quick, we can see if you didn't need quite so much of your sunflowers, you could reverse. If you just didn't need quite as much of the sunflower poking through. But I'll go ahead and do it as they intended. So make sure I'm putting adhesive on the right side of things, putting a little bit more adhesive on those skinny corners. That's going to come right down here. Everything's going to go justified to the inside edge of this base paper. It's flush in the middle. Probably should have put my base big piece on first and then come in with my small triangle. There we go. And then these small strips get put on. They'll just give a nice little definition between and then they give you some recommendations on where to put your mats. You can, of course, adjust as you need. When we come across the top of the right page, or excuse me, the left page. I do give you a nice variety between some horizontals. I guess there's only one vertical in here, but it is easy to make adjustments if you need to. You may find they have even, you've got room if you wanted to add more of your own cardstock to do additional mats. And then of course they come in with some, I'm gonna put these in place really quick so we can get the stickers and so forth put on. You may not want to put your mats on right away. It really depends on whether you have your photos or you know for sure where you want things to go. If you don't have your photos or you're not sure and you like a little bit more versatility, flexibility later, is just have everything cut, put it in a bag or a folder, and you have it all to go later. I do want to keep these side by side when I'm putting my mats on because I want things to line up. So I'm going to drop this down. I'm coming, straight across here. And I'll do the same thing for my smaller photos up here. I want to make sure I'm maintaining an even border across the top between the two layouts. And from the stickers, they're using the large sunflower. The mixed piece goes over here. And you might use some foam squares to pop it off a little bit. There's a little bumblebee. They're coming in over here with all of the words. This is where, if you're going to be adding some more photos, you definitely might want to wait. They tuck the words under. The words come with two banners, or they're banner cut on both ends. And they tuck under a little bit so it looks like just one banner or one banner end. When I put mine on, I tried to line up the first letter of all three words, all three lines. And then of course, we're going to come in with a few more little details down in the corner. I think especially here where we're coming into the sunflowers on top of the sunflower patterns. I'm using some foam stickers would have been really nice there. And another bumblebee. So there we have layout number 1. So it comes together really nicely. I think this is a good one to have to even keep track of in your booklet. You could definitely use it again, the overall banner effect with it. I think it's a lot of fun there with the banner, the big banner between the two pages. Okay, so layout number 2. We're going to start off the left page. We have to paper weld together. The pieces we are going to need to paper weld, we're obviously going to need our welding strips. We're going to need our big piece of chicken paper. The big one is going to sit horizontally. We're going to need 2A and 2B, which are, we should have a total of 4 of these sunflower strips. When you flip them over, you'll see the tonal yellow, and we need 2 of those. One's going to sit at the top or one at the top and one at the bottom, and we're going to be paper welding. Now, Creative Memories in the directions, they tell you to just flip the pieces over to show the reverse side. And then they want you to go ahead and paper weld across this, which is, that works. It's not my favorite way to paper weld. I prefer just to put and then you put like a liberal amount of adhesive on here and go flat across there. I prefer to deal with the front sides. And I'm going to just put some adhesive right down the middle. I'm going to use the regular adhesive right down the middle of my welding piece. I'm going to lay my chickens across it. Actually, I'm going to do first, because I'm right-handed. I'm going to come in here with my top piece. This is my top piece. And then what I'm able to do, because I'm right-handed, is I can slide this in and get it really nice and tight with that seam. And I just, personally for me, I just like that. I feel like I can control and make sure I'm getting that seam nice and tight. Same thing here, putting my chicken paper down, leaving half of my adhesive still exposed. And then I come in with my next piece and just get it in there nice and tight. But you just need to do whatever paper welding works best for you. If you do not like to paper weld, you can just build this on. You could just build this entire thing on a piece of white cardstock, a white base page. You might be able, you could probably use just the entire cover sheet if you wanted to. But there is the left page is put together, the base left page. The right page is just a piece of canary cardstock. So that makes it really easy to put our right page together. Well, let's go ahead and get the rest of our pieces on here. I'm going to be bringing that same tonal paper across the top. That yellow tonal is going to come across the top and the bottom. And then I have 2 of my chicken strips. So I'm going to go ahead and build these. I'm going to put these down on my right page. But again, this is where, we saw a little bit of a thing when you look over here on the reverse side, if you wanted more sunflowers, if you want more sunflowers here, you can see how we can just flip some papers around and expose the other sides. So just things to consider when you're working with a project recipe. If you don't need as much of the chickens, you want more of the sunflowers, you've got some options in there. Just flip papers around and see what you think. I don't need a lot of chickens. I don't need a lot of sunflowers. So for me, it was a little bit more of experimenting with doing a lot more swapping around to make some alternative layouts. The ones I did are very much, they look like the project recipe with some minor modifications, and I'll get those posted later. If you want to do inking around the pieces, you could ink the edges, you could use the ink brushing and really come in and kind of give that shaded possibility, especially on these really light toned papers. Doing a little bit of inking in there is a fun technique. I'm not going to show it to you, but it is a possibility. All right, so there is our base paper. Now we're going to come back to we have all of our papers that we cut out of the brown. We have a couple of 4x6 mats. And we have some shorter mats, some narrower mats. They're going to sit over on the right page. We have that bigger square piece that's going to sit over here and house some photos for us. Now, in the project recipe, they do use a corner rounder on some of the mat pieces here. I'm going to leave mine all just straight, but if you want to use a corner rounder, they show it on this big square that you would use the corner rounder, and then this piece over here, you could do the corner rounder. But of course, you could come in and use a corner rounder on all of the other pieces as well. Now, before I start putting any of those down, I have a little bit, I need to go ahead. I want to put in the border sticker across the bottom because I want to keep that border sticker in mind when I'm putting my other pieces in. So the border sticker is going to sit across the bottom edge where the chickens meet the yellow. You can adjust that if you want to have it be a different spot, but that's what their suggestion is. The other piece, I do need to come in here and do a little bit of a ribbon cut on this strip. So the suggestion is to, if you happen to have the ribbon, this punch, you can punch a ribbon cut. If you don't have that, you can fold this paper in half. Just do a light fold. I haven't pinched anything, and you can cut with your scissors. So you would come in 5 million pairs of scissors, and I keep losing them. And I would just snip, starting at the angle where the corners meet. You start there and then cut up towards the middle. What they show is a rounded cut. So I'm going to hope for the best on this. And I am going to, let's see, I'm going to come in from this outside corner. It's almost like, I mean, you probably, I don't know if I could do it with my corner rounder. No, that's too much of a risk. I don't think I can get it in there quite right. I am just going to go in here and just do a rounded cut. So you can see there, I just did a rounded cut. And then when I open it up, I kind of have just a little bit of a different option for that banner, the banner end. Since I folded here, I'm going to make sure I put a little bit more adhesive in that general area. That will make sure it stays nice flat when it gets put on the page. I am giving myself a little bit more space up here at the top. I'm not centering it quite top to bottom, giving myself a little bit more space up across the top edge. And they probably give us very specific directions on where to put it down here. I'm eyeballing it. If Joanne's saying she used a corner rounder and it worked great, so that's perfect. Good to know. They have all of the measurements in here that tell you exactly where to put your paper, your mats and so forth. I'm eyeballing it. That's like a whole lot of looking for measurements when I can just kind of eyeball where things are. But just know, if you need those exact measurements, they're down here in the directions. Creative Memories does have us as designers put those in there. And it's kind of funny because I appreciate them for some pieces. There are some times where you just need a little bit of help of knowing where the stuff goes. And then there's other times like this particular layer, like, I'll just put it wherever it looks like it goes. And of course, make adjustments for your map, however you need to. This would be a good one if I wanted to come in here. I would say though, if I were to switch this one to vertical, I probably would have shoved everything over just a little bit. I'm having some stalling on I don't know what my issue is on my computer here. All right. So now is to come in with some of those added details. We can see here, I need to come in with my 2 little squares. They're going to sit like right next to each other, overlapping a little bit. And then I'm going to, so I'll put those on. I actually, looks like we're going to use a corner rounder on these. I'm going to use a corner rounder on one edge. And then I'm going to just do one corner on the other piece. And those are going to sit to the outside edge. See how my corner rounds are on the outside here? And then I have my Feathered Friends sticker sits right over the center of that. We've got our big brown chicken and our life full of bloom. That has a name, that type of a jug, whatever it's called. My mom has a few of those. I cannot remember. It's a Midwest thing, I think. I don't know. Again, using foam squares if you want. We're going to put that cute little blue, one of the little blue eggs down here right by the base of that. Does somebody know? It's a crock. That's it. But there's like a specific brand of those crocks, I think. This little chicken goes over to this side. And we have our little chicken. And I'm really sorry, I'm chuckling because it just looks like it popped out of a chocolate egg. It just kind of, it made me chuckle a little bit. They have the chickens down here. I'm going to put the little chicks up here with the big chicken. And that's the joy. You can kind of move things around as you want. They put a couple little eggs up here. And then I do need to come in with another little banner cut here. I do agree that they do cover up a little bit of those. You do cover up a lot of the chicken pattern. I mean, I feel like I have quite a few little headless chickens. You can see little chicken bodies. And this little blue banner sits up at that top edge. Stonewall Crocs is one of them. All right, I think I have a couple little ladybugs. Oh, I didn't put the ladybugs. Ladybugs go on layout number 1. There's 2 ladybugs and I missed putting them on layout number 1. So you'll have all of your little embellishments, all your little stickers, all of your papers all get used in the 2 project recipes. So there we are with our 2 pieces. One gets tucked over here by our cute little sayings, and the other one gets put, where did it go? Oh, down here. There we go. Okay. So Red Wing Crocs in Minnesota is that may have been the one I was thinking from. I'm from Iowa, so we did have a tendency to, I don't want to say inherit or bring south a few of the croc items, or a few things out of Minnesota migrated their way south, I'm sure, into Iowa. All right. I'm going to pass this back over to Tessa. She has got the guidebook to be able to share with you.
Okay, guys, give you a second to breathe, and then we are going to get started. Hopefully you are ready for this marathon of pages. So in your box, the rest of what you have should be the Scrapbook designer paper pack is what it called, NSD. Sometimes this has been called the accessory paper pack in the past. This time it just says it designer paper pack. And then you have a cardstock sampler. We have our guidebook, and then we have our mats, embellishments, sunflower borders, and chicken borders. So we are going to use all of this. I will say that the embellishments and mats can come later if you want to focus on getting the base pages done. It does use the pinking blade. It can be any decorative blade that you have. You don't have to use pinking. You don't have to use the blade at all. You will want some scissors nearby, either the micro tip or the regular, and of course your 12-inch trimmer. If you have space on your table somewhere around you, the way I like to separate out my pieces is by having 5 piles. We have 5 sets of layouts. They have updated the guide as opposed to guides past, in that each piece that we cut has a 1 or 4, any number between 1 and 5. That corresponds with the layout the piece goes to. So now we will sort as we cut. Some people do like to mark each piece with a Post-it. I can't handle that kind of work and Post-it, so I just prefer to make 5 piles. Once you get them sorted and you come back around to your piles, it's usually pretty self-explanatory what piece that you're looking for. And usually by then I'll just go look at the layout and see what that piece is, and I can find it. So It does show us the colors. We will be cutting a couple of sheets of cardstock also. So we're going to need a piece of caramel and 2 sheets of cranberry, along with one each. I think it's one each of our prints, although this is a 6-pack, so disregard that. We're going to go in order. So the first one we're going to cut is the peach sunflower. So the rest of it, you can set it to the side, get yourself organized with where you want to put your 5 piles. I am going to drop one of my mats and just have my 12-inch trimmer and our guides. Get us all situated here. This booklet also does use the sunflower border punch, the sunflower chain, which I should figure out where I put that last night. Would be helpful. Here we go. If you don't have the sunflower chain, it did not come in the actual bundle. We have had several punches along the way that will work. We had the original sunflower, we've had flower child, we've had doily. Those are all very similar to this one. If you need to substitute something that you have, if you substitute in a border maker cartridge, you can. Those designs are just thinner, so you're going to get a little bit less of an effect, but totally fine to do that also. And this will be incorporated in our first cut, so we will need to grab it. So looking at piece number 1, the peach sunflowers, the back side of this, the print, doesn't matter which way that we're cutting. But if you look over here, if we started cutting from left to right, you're going to notice that you're going to end up using real thin cuts at the end. And that's always challenging. Sometimes designs get made that way because as designers, they're trying to use up what's left in the layout. But it's going to be easier for all of us if we actually start over here cutting this piece first and punching, and then we're going to move our way to the other side. So this actually starts out with the decorative blade. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my pinking blade. What ends up remaining here is about 1 inch and 1 3/4. I'm pretty sure that's what that was. Let me double check. That's 9 inches plus about 1.5 to cut. It's about 10.5. Yeah, it's about 10.5. Yeah, 10.5 is 1.5 left. So I'm going to give myself a thin cut just along the edge to get my pinking edge. And I'm going to check. I was going a little bit too fast last night. My table is not completely flat, so I'm not always giving enough pressure for that edge. Now I need to flip back. So I want 2 3/4-inch pieces. You can actually use both sides with the Victorian blade because these are going to tuck. Let's validate this. What piece? It says it's in layout number 5. Let me double check this. Yeah, they're just going to tuck in behind the yellow, so there's no need to change the blade. It doesn't need to be straight. So we're going to cut 2 3/4-inch strips. Now I'm going to pop my straight blade back in. That's the only time that they use the pinking blade in here, so the rest of our cuts can be straight. But before I cut the rest, I'm actually going to punch the border here that you see. I don't know how your punch is working. I don't know if you've tested your punches. What I found with my sunflower, when I started right on that line, I was having a little bit of extra paper here at the end. So I'm just going to start my sunflower a little bit to the right of my line. We do have a lot of punching ahead of us today, but we do have the triangle that will pull through to help us line up. And that gives us our border. This ends up getting cut in half, but I'm going to wait and cut that half when we actually get to the layout. I'm going to set the punch back up and we're going to resume our cutting. So what I need are 3 pieces that are 3 inches wide. I'm going to go ahead and cut using my straight line. One of my pieces, the edge over here has the little triangle pieces. Three inches is 1, 2. And then this last one should just be cleaning at the edge. If you end up a little bit short, it's fine. Just cut off just enough to give yourself that straight edge. I'm going to double check my piles here. So one of these goes in pile number 1, and the next 2 go in pile number 4. And then my last piece is the decorative piece, and my punch piece are in my pile number 5. You're not going to see my piles off camera, but they're right in front of me, right in a row. And then we're going to move into piece number 2, which is the green plaid. The back side of this are the borders, but we're not using those, so it doesn't matter. I don't have the new trimmer yet like Megan does, so I have to raise my arm to cut this in half at 6 inches. I'm looking forward to that update next week when it comes. So I have 2 pieces that are 6 by 12, and these are both for layout number 2. Piece number 3 are the chickens. Same concept, my arm's still out. I'm going to cut these in half, so I have 2 6 by 12 pieces. And lay out pile number 2. Okay, our 4th piece, a little bit more involved, a few more cuts. This is the yellow wire paper. The back side of this is the chickens. On the wire side, they do suggest orienting the paper so that the rippled pieces of the wire are going horizontal. It may not matter to you which direction that sits, but that's what's recommended. If you notice on your cut guide down here in the bottom left corner, there is a piece here that is a 3 by 1, and we're using the back side of that, which means I need to make sure when I cut that piece that I have just beige and not chickens. So I'm actually going to cut this first, this piece over here. So I'm going to make sure that I'm on this side of the paper, flip it over horizontal, but that kind of puts me over here. So I have horizontal ripples, and the back corner is plain beige, and I'm going to cut off 3 inches. I need to rotate this now and cut off that 1-inch piece. The 11-inch piece is going to go in pile number 3. So you should have all 3 piles made now. The little piece is going to go in pile number 5. Our next step is to cut another 3-inch section. And I need to cut these down so they're all 3 inches also. So I'm going to have 4 3-inch squares. And all of these are going to go with layout number 3. My next 2 pieces are 1 inch, and then I have a 4-inch piece. It doesn't matter, we're using the same yellow side, so it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna go ahead and jump over here to the right side and cut off my 2 1-inch pieces. I always like to cut my small cuts to the right if I can. And what you have left should be 4 inches. Our 1-inch pieces are gonna go in pile number 4, and our 4-inch piece is going to go in pile number 5. How you guys doing? Sometimes I'm a little fast, especially because I just did this last night. I'm not thinking about it as much as you guys are. If you're following along, the next piece is the hardest piece. So we're gonna tune in.
I mean,
We're
I
gonna get the
can,
borders. So on this piece, we're cutting out some of these pieces to use as decorative borders. There's a pattern to this paper. You can kind of see where the strips might come up. There's a lot of pieces marked on here also. Some of them we're using the reverse side, so it won't matter. But some of them we're using the print. When you look at your guide, we need to make sure that we have this oriented the same way they do. And that means on the left side, I have a yellow strip and then I have a flowered strip as opposed to the right side when I have the yellow and the light beige. So I need to cut off, it says cut border, piece 5H is cut border. It's almost 1.5. So once you know that you're on the right part of the paper, I actually am going to flip this back around to cut it off because I need to cut down between this blue gingham and the flowers. We're also going to cut off the blue gingham border. So those are the 2 pieces that we're starting with first. This is when we get practice using our little sight guides. So I'm going to go to 1.5 here on my trimmer. It's going to be slightly less than that. So find the 1.5 inch line, back it up a couple of hairs. Then I want you to pull your sight guides down. And we want to be landing off of the blue gingham. We do not want to be in the blue gingham territory, but we also don't want to cut off our scallops. So find a happy place in between those. And cut it in half. Now I'm going to work on the blue gingham. This piece is about 5/8 or so. One thing that's a little trippy is there's a wave to this blue gingham. It is not a straight line pattern. So it can mess with your mind a little bit. So just know that that's true. Like I can go a little bit bigger. It looks like my measurement is 8, 9, 10, 11, 16. Won't it be so fun also when we have the measurements on here? We won't have to count and think about it. Okay, that gives me my blue gingham piece. Now I need to work on cutting, the next piece is 1 3/4, but we're going to use the back side of that, so it doesn't matter so much. But the piece after that is a border cut also that we're cutting between the yellow and the border. So I'm not going to flip my paper over. I'm going to move it over here to 1 3/4. But what you should see is that we're cutting right along this yellow line because what we're doing, in a sense, what we're leaving on the paper is we're cutting out off the matching print with the scallop on one side and the yellow on the other. I'm going to back mine up off of 1 3/4. I'm not quite there. I'd really prefer to kind of be along the yellow line. If you can get there. Now I'm gonna cut this border piece. Again, same as we did just a minute ago, we're gonna cut between the scallop and the gingham. And now you guessed it, we're gonna cut off the gingham border. Oh, I didn't quite get it. Ugh. Even that happens. I'm gonna pause there for a second. I'm gonna go ahead and sort out these pieces that I've already cut. So I have these two borders with the flowers. Those both go to layout number 5. And I have the two gingham borders, and those are both gonna go with layout number 4. And then I have the piece that I'm gonna use the green gingham side, and that's layout number 5. Now, if you have your reading glasses on, or maybe you still have really good eyesight, you're gonna notice after that gingham border here on the guide, piece 1B is literally just cutting off the green dots. It is the tiniest little cut if you wanna do that. They use it kind of as an accent. And then following that, we're using the reverse side, but we want it to be about the same width. But it's gonna be just on the other side of that, kind of the light gray color. It's the yellow strip. You don't have to worry exactly about having the yellow centered because we are using the green side, the back side of this. Both of these pieces are gonna go with layout number 1. The remaining cuts are easier because we're using the reverse side for all of them, so we don't have to worry about the pattern anymore. So if you wanna flip it over, you can. We need a 1 3/4 and a 3-inch piece left, so you should have, let's double, so I wanna make sure I haven't missed one here. Oh, then there's a third piece. That's 3/4 of an inch. So I'm gonna cut 3/4. That's piece 1D, so it's going in the one pile. And then I need piece 5K, or you can cut 3F. So you need a 3 and a 1 3/4, whichever strategy you wanna use. The big piece, the 3 and 11, we need to cut off a piece here at the bottom. And then the 1 3/4 piece goes in pile number 5. So down here at the bottom of this 3G, we are going to cut off a 1-inch piece. Both of these go with layout number 3. That's the most challenging piece to cut. So the next two are pretty simple. They're the caramel and canary cardstock, and then we're going to finish up with some punching and cardstock and another sheet of canary. So you can see the caramel is pretty basic. We're going to cut off a 1-inch and then a 3-inch, and then rotate that to cut off a couple more 3-inch squares in the 2-inch down here. I'm going to cut the 1-inch first over here. Go to pile number 3. Then I need to cut off the 3-inch. I'm going to rotate this and cut out 3-inch squares. These 3-inch squares all go with layout number 3. And then what you have left should be about 8 inches. We're going to rotate this and cut off 3 inches. The big piece goes with layout number 1. Then we're going to cut off a 3-inch square. This goes in pile number 3 with our other 3-inch squares. And then we're going to cut off one more 3-inch square. But this one and the 2-inch piece all go with layout number 5. I think most of the canary, I guess one, no, that goes there. Matte. I think most of the canary are all matte. So if you don't like to have photo mats, pretty sure you could skip cutting this next piece. For those of you that want to make it exactly, it's 4-inch. I'm going to rotate it for 6-inch mats, 4x6. I'm going to cut another 4-inch strip. This one is 4-inch squares. And we have our last piece that I need to cut 4 inches and 2 inches. This entire pile goes with layout number 2, and then I have one lone 4x6 mat that needs to go in pile number 4. Now it's time for some punching fun. We need 4 of our sunflower borders. And at my end, I still have a little bit extra. All of these borders go in layout number 4. It is a messy little punch. See, this is why I need to push it a little bit farther the other way because I keep getting too much left at the end. And one more to go. Dump my mess. And then what you should have left should be 6 inches. But if not, no worries. It's just photos. Also substitute in an extra canary. And then we're going to rotate this and get a 6-inch by 8-inch. The 4-inch mat goes with piece layout number 4 and the 6 by 8 with layout number 5. And that's the cutting. Congratulations if you've made it this far. It's a little bit intensive, but the layouts do come together pretty well. So here we have 2 different ways to approach this depending on your preference. One is to go ahead and get your mat pack out. You can also come back around and do this part at the end. I will go ahead and sort them and use them. It will slow me down. So those of you that may be trying to keep up or work on it can just skip that if you're struggling to keep up with me. We do use all of them in this layout. There's nothing left over. There were 2 sets of borders. And their embellishments. Strategically try to pull out these so it just stays on the cardboard. You can sort through them on top of here. It kind of gives you a little tray to work on, or if you have maybe one of the little trays from previous things that we've had, or snap bin or something, you can dump them all on there so you can dig through them and find what you need. There is a big one here on top, this sunflower frame that is used for the layout, the first layout, so you can keep that handy. So for layout project number 1, there should be one more piece of paper left, a sunflower paper, and then a piece of caramel cardstock. Get my other mat back up here, so I have side by side. Make sure you have your tape. Okay, so we're going to grab pile number 1. We're going to dry fit it first to make sure we have all of our pieces. You can see this big piece of caramel goes on the left. We have the little fatter piece of green gingham here on the left. On the right side, we have a 3-inch sunflower piece. And then we have these tiny 2 strips that we cut. You can see that they are decorating the edge where the sunflower meets the caramel. And then the further pieces, we'll tape those on, then we'll grab our mats. You can use repo tape or regular tape, whatever your preference is. Line up your sunflower base paper on your 13-inch mat so we can watch our measurements. But we're going to adhere this piece 1/4 inch from the left side of the page. And then we're going to adhere our large piece of caramel. This is considered piece 1E. They want it 2 inches from the left, so I'm looking at the 10-inch line up here, and 1.5 inches down from the top. I don't know why I flip it over. How many of you flip over cardstock to adhere? It doesn't actually matter, right? That both sides are the same, but it's a habit I can't break. So I'm coming down 1.5, so I'm going to look over here, and then 2 inches off the left. Over here on the left side, I'm going to adhere this 3-inch piece down the left side of the base paper. I think this big sunflower sheet was my favorite in the pack, probably because it has the butterflies and the bees. And then I want to adhere these little pieces. So these are considered pieces 1B, 1C. If you have a silicone mat, it will help, and you definitely want some repo tape or your mini tape. Find my repo mat. Make life a little easier with these. I think I'm gonna adhere the green one first. Down the edge of the sunflowers. And the little dotted piece. It was a lot of effort, but I do appreciate the little designer touch that this offers. Kind of like a little thin Great Length sticker. I'm going to dig through my mats now, and I'm going to grab that large sunflower mat that I mentioned. So for the mats, I'm looking for a double peach. And then there's one that has happiness blooms here. And then you can see down here, if you look at the bottom right picture, it will show you kind of the decoration in these mats. The top projects, the top layouts, they've covered up some of the decoration in white. So you're not looking just for the yellow trim. It has more underneath what's hiding underneath there. It's called Heart of the Garden. And then Joy in the Little Things. We do want to cut apart the peach mat. If you watch Power Hour, you know I have the newest version of the photo trimmer, and I'm super excited about having the measurements up here because counting those little things was challenging. So when I am cutting something small, I do like to use the photo trimmer. I'm cutting this in half. I know it's a 6.5 inch mat, which means I'm cutting in half is 3 1/4. And now I can easily look up here. There's 3 1/4, and I can just chop it. Just don't get your finger in the way. I'm going to cut that one in half. I'm going to dig out my embellishments. So I'm just having to go by the photo. There's nothing that identifies what layout these go to, but I'm looking for the basket, the brown basket, and then there's some sunflowers that will sit on top. Then there's a lighter brown basket. And that one has 2 different colors of flowers in it. It's hiding. There it is. The white ones look like daisies. The peach one, what do you think the peach ones are supposed to be? They almost kind of look like large impatiens, but I don't think they're actually supposed to be. I don't know if we have peach daisies. I don't think it. Are daisies only white? But that's not true. Sometimes they dye them, but I actually don't know what's inherently. And then on the others, oh, there's also the little blue ones. What are these blue ones called? I don't grow these, so I'm not as familiar with. It almost kind of looks like a wildflower. It does kind of look daisy-ish also. It's too long of a stem for the pansies. But that's going to go over here. On this side over here, we're looking for the large sunflower. It has a bee on it and a butterfly. The orange butterfly. And then down between the center mats, it has another sunflower with a stem. It's just also hiding. Hiding a little too well. Oh, there it is. My last one. Single sunflower. So to adhere these over here, if you want to go ahead and have them ready for photos, if you want to put this one in place, because this will be a photo frame, it will have a photo behind it. I'm only going to use a little bit of a light touch of repo behind it. It just is going to hold it in its space. I'll pull it back up when I'm ready to put a photo behind there. This also has some embossing to it. So when you do go back to adhere onto your photo, what I would do with the photo is probably mat the photo. You could do it 2 ways. The simplest way is probably just to put your photo underneath and put the mat around it. You can also crop it down. It doesn't have to be a 4x6 photo. So if you cut a 4x6 mat, put whatever size photo you want on there, put it in place, and then adhere this over it. Because it is embossed, it does have some texture to it. You could also use foam squares to elevate this after. Do not put foam squares under this right now because it will be very hard to get it back up to get your photo down underneath it. These are also for journaling or mats. You can see that how I'm sitting a little bit cockeyed. Same thing. If you're not confident on your placement, you're not totally sure this is where they'll end up, you can also just put a few dots of repo. It's not hard to move them later, but it keeps them in the spot for now. Otherwise, they'll kind of be loose all over. And then our little flower baskets can sit down here. Create a little cluster of your choosing. The flowers will just sit right on top of the baskets. They have handles, but the handles are getting covered up. But if you adhere the white and coral ones lower, you can see the little top if you want. I just went ahead and covered it up. Okay, so I'm gonna check the chat. Okay, some people think cornflowers are for the blue, and somebody said blue bonnets or forget-me-nots. So I think we have 3 choices here we can vote. Maybe some of those are the same. Blue bonnets are like a Texas state flower, isn't it? Or something similar to that. The sunflowers will sit down here in the pot. And then I'm going to take the little blue ones, the blue bonnets, the forget-me-nots, whatever they are, and I'm just going to kind of stick them in back behind there. So just a little flower cluster underneath there. This mat over here is kind of like a tidal mat at the top. Push it up. I mean, for the record, I'm not one to use foam squares, but like I said, these are embossed embellishments, and so it does pop up nicely if you want to. It has the butterfly on here and the sunflower with a bee. So I am going to use some foam squares, pop that butterfly up. We have another vote for forget-me-not. These mats down here were both for photos. The yellow one will overlap your seam. Because these are the larger 4.5 inch by 6.5 inch mats, it means that they can fit peekaboo pockets. The 4 by 6 feet peekaboos can fit on here nicely. And then this lone sunflower is meant to sit right between those. If you adhere that completely, it might be hard to get your photos up underneath it. So you can just put tape down the middle of it if you want and tuck your photos. Or you could stick it off to the side or use some repo tape. Whatever you want to do so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. I'm going to put some repo tape down the middle so I can easily tuck in a photo on each side of it. And that gives us our first 2-page spread, project number 1. I think this one was my favorite. It looks very busy like this because you can see more of the mats in there, but once you get your photos on there, it will tame down some of the busyness and your focus will recenter where it should be. It does mention some optional doodling. So if you use a micro tip pen, you could doodle along the edge of the cardstock if you want. Maybe use the edge of one of our templates or something like that. Same for over here. Okay, moving on to project number 2. This is the fun one. Okay, the fun's not over yet, everybody. We're gonna paper weld to create our base papers. Are any of you new to paper welding? If you have followed Meggan and I for very long, well, back when we used to do page makers, we did have to do some paper welding sometimes to stay within our project. But so we're gonna lay out these first. For paper welding, there's several different techniques that you can use. You can use photo tape, you can use strips of cardstock, you can use tape chips, you can use washi tape. We also have our new place and peel tape that you can use, and many different things you can use to use things up. I love to use up old photo splits. I have a lifetime supply from the old company. Remember back when I had frosted, we had clear, we had the regular, all of them. They grow out of trees here in my house. So I like to use those as much as possible. And then I do have this old photo tape, and so I was giving it a little bit of extra support with that. So We want the chickens on the outside, the gingham in the middle. I need to flip them over to paper weld them, but you need to make sure when you flip them over that you are flipping them over, changing sides. So the yellow will be on the left side. You will want a 13-inch mat, but you don't have to if you want. You just have to make sure that the pieces are side by side. They are both 6 inches, assuming you have the same cuts. We're going to butt them up right up next to each other. Using my photo splits, what I usually do is kind of get my top and my bottom and then start working a few down the middle. But I want to make sure I have support up here where they come out to the edge. If your layout is going to go in a book right away, you don't have to have as much support. If your layout will get moved around because you don't have photos yet, you want to be pretty generous just to give it a little bit more support and stability. So with the photo splits, I'm not pulling off the back. I'm just doing that. And then for extra measure, because I can, I'm just going to add a little bit of photo tape on top. This is a good way to use up washi tape that maybe you bought and you thought you would use, but you don't. And flip it back over and you have your 2 pages. If by chance you see a seam down here in the middle, just cover it up with something. Cut a thin strip of canary or caramel or maybe a hot fudge or something. Just kind of paper weld it down the center in the middle. It'll just get incorporated into the design, kind of like the thin strips we did before. It'll be totally fine, I promise. Okay, I'm going to work on this side over here. Same concept. I know, Lisa. The photo tape sold out, so I actually thought about that. I don't use photo tape very much, but I thought about that last night. I was like, some people would be shaking their head at me for using photo tape to paper weld, if they want to hoard it for more important uses. The last sellout went pretty fast. I did not stock up before it happened. And the irony was, I think I had like 5 in stock on my website, but I was at a retreat that weekend, and my aunt, who has been away from scrapbooking, but she's an old schooler, she still uses photo tape kind of the old way, and she wanted to buy some of it. And then, of course, someone had come through online and tried to buy it all, but she already had been using it because she hadn't bought it yet off the website. And it's like, sorry, I don't have that much. It sits forever not selling, and then I sell more than I even have. It is true. Claire's talking about this technique. Sometimes it is easier when you have cardstock or whatever to cut one piece wider than the other, so you're overlapping to weld. Sometimes we just can't do that. I should have mentioned it before you got this far, but it's also true if you really want to avoid the full-on chicken, you could paper weld the yellow side against the green side if you want to minimize it. If you like the beige but don't want the chicken, you could also cover up the chickens, right? You could stick a photo mat down here and just have maybe your little sunflowers popping up out of the top of it, or cut a larger mat and cover them up completely if you want more of that neutral color rather than, the chickens are cute. There's nothing to say the chickens aren't cute. Just the versatility of 14 layouts with some chickens sometimes felt like a lot, but then there's other people like Kristen that probably have ideas and pictures for all of them, right? Because you have chickens. I will eventually have chicken pictures. I need to go find them. Okay, next step is the mats. We should have a whole stack of mats underneath in your pile still. We have the 4x6s. We have the 4x4s. And then I need to dig out Kyle, I need to look for one with a sunflower and one with a chicken. They're gonna get cut in half. The flock that plays together stays together. We'll go over here. And flock together, laugh together, we'll go over here. And it is true. If you are hosting an NSD, National Scrapbook Day event, or attending one, I always suggest to people, if you're attending an event with that theme, then and you don't have any use for the theme, just take pictures at the event and put them on that layout. And it's perfect. You have a use for it every time. If you go and take a group photo, take pictures with your table mates. I mean, 10 pages is a lot, but hey. Okay, they overlap these mats. So if you look on the back of the chicken, you have this green. So if you look at your handout, you can see on the top left has some green peeking out. The bottom left has some canary. These are these two pieces that they've layered up over here. And then over here on the right, the back side of this is yellow, and they're overlapping this brown over here. I think I was only paying half attention to Meggan, but I'm pretty sure that there was some talk about a corner rounder. Same concept here. You can notch in or round the edges of these mats if you want to with the two-way corner rounder. Or maybe you have like the old Victorian or the scallop or the four ways. We've had several different corner rounders along the way. I don't love the back notch of these. I think I'm going to stick with the straight lines, but I am going to go ahead and adhere all this down. So for this one, I'm going to adhere it so I see the green behind there. And then the canary in the bottom right corner. Just a little bit of tape in the middle in case I want to move these around. Because you are adhering to a gingham, that's helpful because the gingham lines can help you line up your mats. And then here, this one over here. I like to pull down this cluster a little bit closer to my mats. I don't love things super spread out, so I'm just adhering it a little bit closer than it shows you on the guide. Oh, we also still have to do the borders. Okay, it's okay. The mats don't get in the way. These are for 3.5-inch photos, a little bit closer to the edge. I'm going to adhere the mat so that the yellow mat is in the bottom right corner. And then adhere, it will overlap the photo mat slightly, but I'm not going to put adhesive all the way to the edge so I can still tuck in photos as needed. The other idea I thought of for these pages is one of my favorite meals to go out for is brunch. I love going out for breakfast. I love like omelets and hash browns and all the things I don't like to make. And every now and then we take a group photo, and I thought, well, the chickens and the eggs could go with breakfast. Restaurant pictures. And we do need the chicken borders. These are pretty thick. You will want to use your scissors for these to cut them. So if you notice, they are not going full 12 inches on each side, but they did cut them so it looks like a continuous chain. And so what I did is I offset the borders. So I analyzed it and I figured out, okay, the black rooster from the right edge is going to line up with the black rooster on the left edge of it. So they will overlay exactly. So you see kind of how long this border is now because I have these over each other. And then if I want it to span the page, I'm cutting to the right side of the little yellow chicks that are sitting next to the black hen. Now I have microtip, I have my regular. I also keep a longer pair of scissors, like Scotch scissors I got at Costco. Sometimes I use these, and I am cutting through 2 layers, so you can use your trimmers if you want, whatever scissors you want. But I'm going to cut them in half at the same time. The trick is trying to make sure I'm truly up and down and not at an angle. So what happens when I do that is I can take my long pieces. I have 2 extra short pieces now. And if I hear the edges, it will look like it's coming across the middle. I'm going to adhere these. That's about 3/8 of an inch from the bottom. These are pretty hefty borders, so if you have regular tape, I do suggest using some regular tape with these just to give it that little bit of extra stick. And then one suggestion on the layout, if you want to, if you like it, you can adhere the extras on top. It will give you a little bit of a dimensional effect to the chickens if you want kind of a multi-layered look. So I'm adhering the short piece over the end of the long piece, if that makes sense. I think I'm going to save mine and maybe just accent them around the layouts in different ways when I actually do make them or use them with something. And I think that is, oh no, we still have a couple other, nope, that's printed. Yeah, it's the eggs. We need to find the nested eggs. I think is the only additional embellishment. And I'm going to adhere it down here next to the hen. Quick double check to make sure it all matches, and I think that's it. That's project number 2. And Kristen did have a good point. You don't have to use all of these layouts in one succession. You can save them because you will just have to remember what you have. Moving on to project number 3, we have another 2-page spread, and we need our 2 sheets of beige cardstock for this one. And pile number 3. I should have a couple of long pieces that will sit over here and a long caramel piece. On the right side, I should have 5 caramel squares and 4 honeycomb, or not honeycomb, they're chicken wire, 4 chicken wire squares. And then I have a little piece that we can banner cut for a tag. So if you have your microtip scissors, easy just to do a little cut to the middle on an angle. Flip it over. If you want a banner for that piece. And then over here, it looks like I need 2 photo mats. We'll start there. We'll come back for the embellishments. One of the tools, if you bought the straight ruler that goes over your cutting mat, this is the perfect use for it to use with these, putting down these squares over here. I did not hate life as much as I anticipated using this to adhere them. But we're going to start on the easy side first. Let's do the left side. We're going to adhere the green gingham piece first. And it's going to be a 1/4 inch from the left edge. 1/4 inch from the left, 1/4 inch from the bottom. Then I'm going to use my yellow piece. I'm going to overlap it. I want it to be 3/4 of an inch from the left edge, and then 2 inches from the bottom, which is the 10 on the right side, the 2 on the left. I have a 1-inch strip of caramel, which will go right between where they overlap. Might as well just, I'm gonna go ahead and put my photo mats down because I got them out before I move this over. This one is going to overlap the yellow. And this one a little bit to the left of it and push down. We're gonna come back to those embellishments. I need to move this over a little bit here in the center to work on the grid. So what do we have here? We need to make a 9 square. I am going to get my base paper centered on my mat. I am going to lay out the squares in their appropriate spots. If you want the ripples of the wire to be horizontal, check that first. Easy to overlook that when we are focused on measurements. So I want to adhere. Let me make sure I'm on the right spot. I want to tell us wrong. 1¼ inches from the top and the left. So I'm going to get this first one down. One and a quarter. And then I'm coming down here. I can see the 11 and it really says 3/4, but that's going to be 1/4 down. This is easier to do standing up. I don't want to lean over too much. You'll see the top of my head. I'm going to go ahead and skip down to the bottom one and also pull it up 1¼ and then the yellow one will center in between. These are 3 inches, so it should be 7.5, between 7.5 and 5.5. 4.5. I'm looking at the 5. It's 4.5 to 7.5. It gets a little easier from here because now I'm going to pull my ruler over. If you look at your ruler, a 1/4 inch off the edge, you have a darker line, and that is 1/4 of an inch. Because that's the spacing that we're using, I want the edge of my paper underneath there. I'm going to look through there and see the edge of my paper along that darker line, and that means I can line up my pieces against the ruler again. Much simpler to do it this way than trying to eyeball it like we used to. And even Megan and I, we've been using the T rulers for a long time, but they weren't quite long enough and it didn't T over both ends. So there was inherently, sometimes it would shift, wasn't as wide as this. It was a little bit pricier of a price point than some of us expected it to be. It's a bit of an investment tool, but it is one of those investments that saves us some stress. Remember when we would have to pull them up and redo them? It's just so aggravating. Then you hate your hobby and you have to get up and walk away. And that's what this ruler investment is for, is to save us some of this hassle. So it's the same thing, pulling it over, the same thing. I'm going to line up that darker 1/4 inch line at the edge of my paper. If you're sitting down doing this like I am, you might want to do a double check at this point and make sure you got your horizontal lines lined up. If you stand up when you do it, it's a little easier to kind of keep tabs on your lines. I think I did pretty well. I think it's actually good enough. Inherently, because we're cutting 9 3-inch squares, there's a little bit of subtle difference that's going to show up in the sizes. I think this yellow one is slightly bigger than this one. By the time you get it all done, those little imperfections kind of disappear into it. And yes, Nicole, I think I flipped every one of those cardstock pieces over to put tape on. It's just a habit we cannot break, right? Muscle memory. Okay, now I can pull out my other layout back beside this. And we will dig out all the embellishments. No, you're right. You know what? It is, thank you. I did the same thing last night. I had this exact one flipped. Just get too focused on the ruler. Okay, for the embellishments, there's quite a few. Megan's favorite, the floating hen house that gets to sit up here in the corner. There is a beige brown, kind of a tidal bar piece. We're also looking for some chickens and some chicks. We need a black chicken. The all cooped up, if you come across that one, comes over here. Scrapping with my chicks. We get that down here. The hen sitting on the nest was his little chick. Goes over here. There should be a couple of crocs. Oh, there's my black chicken for up there. There's a white hen for down here. There's my other crock. I have a couple of crocks. There should be another black chicken. The white mama hen with her two little chicks following her. Some white flowers. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces for this side. Plus our little banner green piece if you didn't lose it on your table. And then over here on the right, I need the brown chicken that is pecking. No, he has a worm in his mouth. There's the hatching memories. Pluck, yeah, we're together. I didn't read that earlier. Pluck, yeah. Okay. There's some baby chicks. There's a trio of brown eggs. Another chick. Basket of eggs. And then the eggs with blue. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 pieces for this layout. I do prefer a little bit more clustering than is shown on the handout. I'm going to start up here with my chickens. You can get some foam squares if you want with this embossing. The cluck yeah is going to tuck up under the black. Speckled. Okay, it's a speckled hen. Is that a hen or a rooster? Now I'm having a moment about do we have roosters in here? I know what a rooster looks like, but they're all kind of running together now. Okay, I'm gonna get that together. Gonna sit up here. I have my blue hen house. It looks like a playhouse. They're all hens. Thank you. And then the hatching memories is going to tuck in here. And then my baby chicks can sit up here somewhere. I'm going to cluster them up by the ramp. So it doesn't look quite so much like that's floating. Down here, I'm going to adhere my scrapping with my chicks and then pull in the eggs and the chick a little bit closer. I want them to kind of all, touch and cluster. I just got to make sure I don't cover up my words. You can pop them up with foam if you want. Like I said, I don't tend to use a lot of foam because I use a lot of peekaboo in my albums. I already have a lot of width and depth and thickness that keeps my albums pretty full. So I don't tend to use a lot of foam. And there's inherently, because these are thicker embellishments, there's already thickness coming in with them. Okay, then over here on this side, we have a little cluster over here in this caramel one with the crocks. I do have a big crock on my porch that I got from my grandma's farm. When she moved in with my parents, which has been about 9 years ago, we kind of had a family auction where we bought off her farm remnants, and then all the money went into supporting her. Farm wives don't generate a lot of Social Security. At least she did not back in the day. Largely a very unpaid position. I can put my little banner over here. And she raised 13 kids. You heard that correctly. My grandma had 13 kids. 11 of them were boys. My dad was number 2. She had 2 girls, and the first girl was number 11. She had 10 boys before she had a girl. And then, so number 11, no, number 9, I'm sorry, number 9 and number 11 are girls. And number 11, the youngest one, is a boy, but he is only 4 years older than me. So my aunt, number 11, was only 5 years older than me. So I actually hung out with them and got to spend the night over there. Okay, I think that is it for project number 3. I did cluster these a little bit more. You can see down here, there's kind of floating there along the bottom. I kind of clustered them. I don't really know what I'm going to put in these squares. Probably title journaling here. You could even use the white jelly roll pen. You could tuck in some little photos here. So I want to give myself some options and space. I still have room here to tuck in a photo behind those chicks also. That's layout number 3. For our project number 4, we need the blue cardstock. I definitely have some core memories from, I feel very fortunate that I was the 3rd oldest grandchild. And so I did spend a lot of years at the farm. One of our favorite things to do on Sunday afternoon, after church, we'd go home and have dinner, and then we would head over to the farm to hang out with whoever else happened to show up. I'm grabbing pile number 4. It's kind of large. I'm going to flip these pieces over. I'm going to dry fit as we go. I have my sunflower pieces and my yellow wire. And then we're going to work on these borders here at the bottom. So you need your sunflower borders, you need your gingham strips, and then you should have 4 punched borders. Let's go there it is. There's my 4th. And then some mats. I'm going to do the mats last. I'm going to start by adhering these pieces, and I'm going to work on their borders here at the bottom. These pieces are, looks like a 1/4 inch. Yeah, 1/4 inch spacing off the center. When I got to stay the night at my grandma's farm, the upstairs of the farmhouse had 2 large bedrooms. You walked up the stairs, a room on each side. All of the boys were in one side, and then the 2 girls were in one by themselves, which by the time obviously I was going over there, some of the boys were married and gone. And then there was one tiny bedroom on the main level aside from my grandparents' bedroom. But the upstairs did not have heat. And so when I would stay the night in the winter, someone would have to run up and turn on the electric blankets. And then you wait a little bit and go up when it was time to all snuggle down. And you can never sleep in very late, at least I couldn't. They probably were all used to it because the roosters would start crowing when the sun came up. The other thing I loved about her farm was they had peacocks. I just didn't realize how uncommon that actually is in Indiana. I don't think a ton of people have peacocks. Um, but the peacocks are always prevalent. You could always take home peacock feathers. And then there's the notorious story. I think I was about 8. My grandma had a huge tree in the front yard, and it had a tire swing, like a tractor tire swing that we would swing on. And I was probably 7 or 8. Oh, the butterflies are upside down. Thank you. Flip these. And one of the peacocks in the tree pooped all over my head. And let me tell you, that stuff smells. I think I was spending the night because I'm pretty sure I was like going in to shower and do my laundry. Another core memory. I'll never forget that. I don't even think that many people were there to notice it. It wasn't like one of the big family gatherings, like I said. I think maybe it was just us. Okay, yeah, thanks for catching. I had the butterflies. Some of them are sideways depending on where you're cutting your pattern. Some of them do orient upright. For the borders at the bottom, we have our sunflowers that will kind of be top and bottom. I got to remind myself, this looks to be a little bit more than an inch, and this is considered 4H. So yeah, 1 inch from the bottom, and then we're going to work our way up. You will want some repo tape and your silicone mat. We also thought it was fun to go gather the eggs. Of course, they had the chickens and the roosters. They had a very large yard. But you'd always have to like put their boots on because who wants to walk through all the chicken poop to go in there? And then the eggs, of course, were not nice and clean like they are in the grocery store, right? Sometimes they have stuff stuck on them. This one is going to adhere just above it, like almost touching, not quite in spacing. One thing to notice too, depending on your punches, there is a little bit of a direction to the petals. It only matters once you notice it if you want them going the same way, since they are going to sit top and bottom. You might decide you want the ones on the left page kind of curving towards the center. Maybe on the other side, you want them curving, back that way. Whatever you choose, just pay attention to, so that they're consistent. Double checking my line here. I think I'm okay. Once you get those down, we're going to adhere one of the gingham strips. So it just kind of covers the center of the top border. And then if you want to check your spacing before you adhere it, we have our sunflower border that's going to sit just underneath that down there. We did always have fresh eggs. And my mom was pretty healthy back for then. Of course, this was the 80s. But one thing I loved about my grandma, I've told the story before, maybe you've heard it, I don't know. But it was like candy because she got white bread. And so that was like what I would want to snack on, as I would go dig out the bread box where the bread was kept and find a piece of white bread. And it was the same as eating a cookie. Because my mom only bought wheat bread. And when you're a child, you don't want wheat bread. Okay, for my borders, I am going to use regular tape. These are pretty stiff. My grandma did not make her own bread. I'm pretty sure she was too busy for that. But what she did make that we all miss now is she would make homemade noodles. So all the holidays we'd have homemade noodles. I'm going to adhere that sunflower border right there, kind of along the middle. And now I'm going to repeat it over here on this side. They heated the main level with a wood burning stove. And they also had a fireplace in the family room. So in the winter, we would gather in there on Sunday afternoons with the fire going. And then for snack, they would make popcorn. And they had one of those poppers where it's like black and it has the red handle at the top, and then you spin it to pop it. And then they would always serve it in 9x13 aluminum cake pans that were quite battered. Yeah, grandma did live here in Indiana. They lived, I grew up in Bartholomew County, which is a little town called Hope, which is about an hour south of Indianapolis here. So Indiana Midwest farming. And then the other treat, if there weren't a lot of people there, like if you were spending the night, then grandpa would get out the ice cream. So they always had vanilla ice cream and the Hershey syrup in the can. You guys remember the cans of Hershey's, and you'd have to use the thing to pop the air on one side and the hole in the other? Okay, I think that's, let me double check here with the borders. That's my borders at the bottom. So what's left to add to this layout is I have 2 canary mats. I should have a blue mat. So that's a beautiful day. And then down here at the bottom, we're cutting this one. So it's Sunshine of My Soul on one side. The back side of it is blue that they use. I am impressed with my memories. I do not have the best memory, but some of those just happen so frequently, so common that they're core. Okay, let me double check my embellishments and then we will. There's not that many left. The fences and the flowers go with layout number 5. So we should have a sunflower, 2 sunflower clusters. I think that's it. And the rest of them go to 5. So we can adhere these. I'm going to go ahead and adhere the flowers to the top. And this is definitely one too, because of the way this is embossed. I could pop this up with a foam square. And then over here, you see white on here. Those are really just photo placements. You can see down here at the bottom, we don't have white cardstock cut. I'm not going to adhere these mats because that would sit in the middle. But this one over here, when I'm ready for that, and for now, I can just tuck it down on the top of that border. If your photo looks good with that, you know, tucking these down into the flowers or above, at least above the sunflower border part is pretty cute. So I don't have to adhere those for now. I can just kind of tuck them down in there. This one is large enough for a photo. You could also journal on it. This one's going to go over there. I think this is my second favorite, partly because of the big sunflower print, and it really pops the yellow against the blue. Okay, and then now we're on to our last layout. Oops. For this one, we have 2 sheets of Songbird, and then you should have 1 pile left. Let's dry fit our pieces. We have 2 wider green strips, and remember the borders that we cut out so meticulously. We have 2 strips for those. And then we have our coral borders, and then we have the decorative ones that we cut. So we can kind of do this in layers. Our first step can be overlapping this on top of the coral, the yellow on top of the coral. You can use repo tape If you have mini tape, it works well for things like this because we can just get a little bit down the sides. You can't see it because it's a little bit more clear. Do that. Same for this side. Helen's saying her grandma made strawberry jelly. I don't remember. They definitely had strawberries. I don't remember being there when they made jelly, but I definitely had aunts that did. I'm sure grandma did. But what still lives on now is bagging up sweet corn. They had a kitchen out in the barn, and so they would can and freeze. We do sweet corn, and then I've had many days of sitting out there in the swings. Okay, so I'm gonna keep talking, but I'm gonna adhere these to the bottom, and then we're gonna cut our flowers. So remember when we didn't cut our flowers earlier on the cutting guide? This is where it tells you, if you go back here, we're gonna trim this into 3 sections. We need 5 flowers, 3 flowers, and 2 flowers. 5, 3, and 2. We're gonna cut those in half. With those. And then those are gonna adhere down here at the bottom. Yeah, also on the property was the original log cabin from the 1800s, sitting next to the farmhouse, which was built in the late 1800s. And they had 2 swings on the porch of the log cabin. And so we would sit out there in the summertime and many days and snap green beans so that they could can them. And in the summertime, we would sit out there and eat watermelon that they would grow. So yes, we had seeds back then before the seedless became the only way to eat watermelon. I'm going to adhere the one with 3 down here. Repeat for the left side. I do need to go back and make sure I've written all down these memories. I have made a book of farm pictures. Before she moved out, we went through and photographed everything in her house, all the rooms. And I did make albums of those pictures. And then I made a duplicate for me. So I do need to go see what memories I wrote in there. I'm going to adhere the set of 5 flowers down here. I'm going to now adhere this strip overlapping on the right. So this big piece is about 1/2 inch off the right. I have my large canary piece for photos that can sit here. You can adhere it down completely. You can wait till you have your photos, but whatever photos you have, you could cut it down. Like we talked about on Power Hour this week, is trying to trim a little bit more, fit a few more photos. On this side, I need to dig. I should be using the rest of my mats. So I have backyard list, the blue side. I have my fences. And then my flowers. And then I should have some, little banner pieces still. Yeah, this one for photos. I got a banner piece for up there. And then one more banner to cut down here. So down here to finish out this side, you can see on the handout, we can just see the edge of the fence. Not much, but a little bit. So just cut off a small section of it, enough to tuck in behind. We don't need to cut the other fence, but I'm going to adhere it so it tucks in behind here. Helen mentioned outhouses, and there was an outhouse there too. I'm pretty sure grandma would lock the door in the summer and make the boys stay outside, and they had to use the outhouse rather than coming in. I think grandpa did too. You have a lot more fence than is shown on the project. There's a lot. You can tuck as much under here as you want. You can let more of it show. We are going to overlap the flowers on top of this. You could pop these out with foam if you want. And then you should have a little bee. It shows a little bee there that you can adhere, maybe where some photos intersect here in the middle. And this, I think, is everything for the right side. And then to finish off the left, we need a banner cut or pieces up here. One over the other. I'm going to adhere this one to the middle of this one. We're going to create a little cluster. And then I should have these two flowers left. It's going to get layered with the sunflowers. So kind of adhere it a little bit closer to the top. And then I should have a sunflower cluster. You can pop on top. So I want to be able to see a little bit of my banners coming out the bottom. And then I'm going to adhere this whole thing up there in the right corner. They had cows on the property. My uncles did pigs, but they were not there back then, at least. They had cows. And one of the funny memories, my grandpa died of cancer in 2013, and he did not like to go to the doctor. So by the time he figured it out, he was pretty end stage. So he was at home on hospice. You guys know I'm a nurse, so I had one of the shifts of taking care of him one night. And I remember, I think it was my dad had come after church, so it must have been Sunday morning, and had to chase the cows. The cows had gotten out of the gate. And they were a quarter mile off the road, so it's not like they were going anywhere. But my dad was out there in his suit trying to chase the cows back into the gate. My uncle came over with his truck to kind of corral them. These mats can go wherever. So if you have more photos to put here, you could push these mats up to give you more space down here. If you want, this could also be a peekaboo spot. And then you could even cut another mat with blue here. You could do it side by side with 4x6 and a 4x4 peekaboo. We have the smaller 4x3 ones also. So while this layout doesn't show you a lot of photo space, I'm actually going to push it down a little bit to the yellow. And then this little brown photo can tuck in here. Even if you don't have a photo that small, maybe you could journal there. And then we have one more section of fence and the flowers to adhere down here in the corner. Since I popped them over here, I'll pop them over here on this side too. One flower my grandma had that I've never had let growing are hollyhocks. I've tried a couple times and they just don't like my yard. I always tried with that. Okay, so that's layout number 5, except, nope, that's not, they can't be except 2. Okay, what did I miss? I have, what you have left then are the coral flowers they have kind of tucked up in here. And then the ladybugs right there. And that should literally be everything used except those pieces of chicken borders, unless you did it. And look, oh my gosh, look at the timing of that. I literally run out of repo on the very last. Not time that any better. That is layout number 5. They are cute. So hollyhocks are killed with kindness. I guess that's okay. I'll try to be meaner with them. Might try again. Okay, well, thanks for the long haul. It's 4:30, so that was a solid 2.5 hours. Megan was a farm girl too. Oh, well, I don't know if she actually on the farm. She's an Iowa girl, which is probably partly why we get along, because we're both country girls at heart.
My mother was the farm girl. She and my dad moved into the city. So a lot of the things you're talking about, I grew up with frozen sweet corn. We never had any corn. We didn't buy corn from the store. Like, why would you do that? Green beans were always, you just go down to the basement and grab a canned green beans off the shelf. Frozen strawberries, we did our own. My grandmother did. I did not have my own jelly. Like grape jelly was always from grandma's house. And it was a big, my grandma did a lot of it herself. Like paired with my mom and my aunt would come over, but my grandma did a lot of it herself. Like all of that, she just did. It wasn't like a big thing. She didn't have a lot of kids. There was 2 girls, and both those girls married city boys and lived in the city, and they had city jobs. And so, but I will say my grandparents were somewhat adamant that they did not want their daughters being farmers. They did not want them marrying farm boys. They wanted them. They lived through the farm crisis. They had lived, well, that was even before that, but all of that stuff. It was a hard life. And they had wanted just a different life for their kids. So that's how it kind of went.
Well, I'll let you wrap it up.
Oh, I can do that. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And let me see here. I'm going to kick Tessa off the screen so I can be a little bigger. We really appreciate you guys joining us today. It was a little bit of a different approach with the registrations. Hopefully it worked out for everyone. You will get a copy of this video in an email. It will also be available on our YouTube channel. So, Deborah Fishy saying she got the heck out of Iowa. Next things we got coming up, we just had Power Hour this last week. So, we won't have Power Hour again until April. And then, of course, followed after that, we will start gearing up for our next Summer Scrap Challenge, which will start in June. So, we really appreciate, as I mentioned, you guys joining us today. Hopefully, you have a chance to get those layouts all put together. You can share them if you want. If you make some changes to your layouts and want to share your variations, or you have photos or other things that you want to share, please do so. We'd love to see them. You can share them in the Ideas and Inspiration group. It's a lot of fun to see how people take, we're all working with the same materials, and to see how people change it, they make it their own, or they get those photos that match so perfectly in there. I would love to hear all your chicken stories. My chicken stories are pretty much heading to, like, I don't know, Cane's or Kentucky Fried Chicken, or just my husband grilled chicken today for lunch. So, all right, everyone, take care. We will be in touch soon. Thanks.